record button. There we go. Alrighty. We should be
All
good to
right.
go whenever you are.
Hi. So if you don't know me, I'm Kafka. I play Zato-1. I only play Zato, and I've been playing Zato since release. Um, do I have credentials? Not really. I'm okay. But I think I can explain to you pretty well how this character works. I've spent a lot of time figuring it out. And for me, it comes very intuitively, but I understand that that's not the case for other people. But my goal with this is to try to give you all who are listening and the same similar sort of intuitive sense that I have for the character, so that when you are fighting him, you will at least struggle a little bit less, or maybe have a better sense of what's going on. And if this doesn't answer all of your questions and give you all of the different strategies that your character is going to have for fighting Zato, my hope is that you will have a launching pad from which to figure that out on your own, or at the very least, you can do some reading or some watching, and you'll have a better understanding of what's going on from Zato's perspective. Because what happens when you play Zato is that or you play against Zato is that the character is designed to overwhelm your options and control the battlefield almost in totality. That is by design. So having an understanding of how your character is going to navigate the methods that Zato is going to use to squelch your abilities is going to be very critical in just going forward, beating the character, but also succeeding in the micro interactions that you'll face. So just as an overview before we start, the first thing we're going to do is talk about all the moves, since so that we can all be on the same page, at least roughly the same page. There will be a photo of the move in the hitboxes when possible, and there will be some frame data on the screen. If that's something that you're interested in, you will have access to slides later so that you can refer to them. But all of the frame data is pulled from Dustloop. Dustloop is a great resource. Especially when it comes to the nuts and bolts of the games, the strategies and so forth are always kind of hit or miss. After we talk about Zato's moves, we'll talk about Eddie's moves and some of the quirks that are inherent to that. And then we'll kind of briefly discuss game plans. And following that, we will start doing some real game stuff and talk about how Zato's pressure is structured, because it is very specifically structured. I think one thing that is overwhelming at first is that it seems like there's a lot of things happening simultaneously, when in fact there are things that are happening in sequence that are in control, that the Zato player is in control of, but they are limited in some capacity to what they can do at a given time. And then we'll talk about the Okazeme and the mix-ups and some RPS situations. I can't be exhaustive simply because I don't know them all, or I can't perform them all, but I can do most of them, and I will do my best to help understand them. And then I'll have some time for questions in between all this stuff, and at the end we'll just do some final Q&A. I know this slot is 2 hours. I don't know if I use it all, but I did kind of design this so that once we go over all the details, especially the more quote unquote textbook stuff, my hope is that we'll kind of engage in this together, and I want to try to get you guys to start thinking in the same way that a Zato player might think, or at least understanding that. So a quick notation review is that the closed brackets are to hold a button, and open brackets are to release a button. Zato is a negative edge character, which I'm sure you know. So Eddie's moves happen when a button is released, or when a command normal for Eddie is done. So this doesn't come up a lot, but it came up a few times, and it justifies just reviewing it, since we're talking about the character, that if you see this example here, 2 brackets S, that means that the Zato player will be holding this button and potentially pressing and holding other buttons while that button is held down, and then eventually they will release that button. This is particularly important when we start talking about pressure, when we start talking about mix-ups, because what will be happening is that the Zato player will press a button and another button simultaneously so that he can release the second button or the first button, in the sense that you are performing some kind of an option select based on what your opponent is, what you think or what you witness your opponent doing. So, food for thought. Whoa. Kappa. Oh, that's awkward. Okay, that's fine. We can roll from here. So, I have never seen that happen before. Let me see. Let me full screen this really quick.
Yeah, that's actually not one.
Oh, that's so sad. Okay, so essentially, let's see. I want to remove all the unnecessary shit here. Yeah, that's fine. So, let's start by talking about normals. And the basics are going to be obviously the punch normals. 5P is his fastest normal at 5 frames. It is the preferred Abare option. So you will see this option a lot, especially if the Zato is on defense. I've enumerated here a few options. The reason I've done that is because I think you should be afraid of this button, especially if you are putting Zato under pressure. The possible advantage that Zato can get if he connects this button with you is enormous, and especially it can almost, or rather with 50 meter, it can become a reversal situation. So you should be very afraid of this button. It controls a disproportionate amount of space relative to other punch moves. It's extremely fast, and it hits everybody whether they're crouching or not, and it does have some anti-air capability. So you should be concerned about this because it leads, even without meter, it leads to his win condition. So counter hit 5P links into 2K 2D, which then means your hard knockdown, which if he has Eddy meter means that he can do 2-1-4H and summon Eddy, and then you're sad, probably. At least you're getting hit by Okazeme, and you don't want to be in that situation. 5K is one of those moves that has a more niche set of uses. You're generally not going to see it in block string situations. Actually, that's not true. You will see it in block string situations, but you won't see it in neutral situations because it's basically only good in block strings. It is one of Zato's, I think it's 2, it might be 3 moves that is plus on hit, meaning that it is a burst bait move. It's a burst and YRC bait move. And it is, because it's jump and dash cancelable, in block strings, it allows for jump cancel ambiguous high-low mix-ups. And that's particularly concerning in the corner. And I can show you guys some of that later. Commonly, though, you're not going to see it mid-screen particularly. And my opinion is that this will be like an unorthodox choice. It's got an unorthodox choice for block strings. It is. It is a niche move, to say the least.
We're having a PowerPoint presentation learning session here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll start here and then we'll get into the game in hopefully less than an hour. So close slash is, I mean, it's a close slash. It's a good media option. It's the most versatile Gatling option. So what you're going to see a lot of Zato players do is they'll close slash you, particularly if Eddy is out, and then you have, you're taking a 50-50. They might go low, they might go high. It is jump cancelable. I think in general, I don't personally jump cancel this move, and I don't see a lot of other Zato players jump cancel this move, because I think if you're going to do a jump cancel ambiguous mix up, 5K is a better choice. One thing that I think this move benefits from is its long active frame duration, particularly as a media option. And on counter hit, you get very good conversion. Far slash is, I think, the most quote unquote a move of Zato's moves. It's not the best move. There are other moves that almost always do the same thing but better. I've written here that it's slowish, and I've written that because the situations in which you would want to use this move are at longer distances, and the hitbox on on that part of the move doesn't come out until after 10 frames, and so not only that, but you get very bad conversion at that distance. 5H generally doesn't connect at that range, so there are some uses for this. I've seen other Zato players be very successful in using this as like a jump call out. But my preference in neutral, and based on my play style perhaps, is that I'd almost always rather use 2S at the same distance because it performs the same function and gets me a better conversion through the variety of frame traps and rock, paper, scissors that I get to play afterward.
Quick question
Yeah,
before you move
what's up?
on from the far slash. Since it's 2 hits, right? You
Mhm.
can't if you actually get a combo off at the right spacing.
Yeah.
Couldn't that maximize your damage because it's 2 hits of 20 damage rather than, and you can continue your combo off with Eddie somehow. I don't know much about Zato, but you could continue the hit stun from with Eddie and then get in for another rotation of your combo.
Maybe. I don't really know the answer to your question. Intuitively, when I'm thinking about it, what I see happening, especially when the second hit of far slash connects, is that the opponent is blown backward. And so that
Really?
makes that
Even
makes
on even
connecting
like
very
heavies,
difficult.
super heavies?
It depends on the gravity scaling. So the situations in which this move, I want to connect this move, are really dead on, and then I get 2H afterward. So typically
Right.
speaking, I don't in my lab work and in my gameplay, I haven't found a
Mhm.
situation where I hit FS and then I'm able to connect an eddy move afterward. Generally, what I want to do is hit F far slash and then hit 2H because 2H changes their momentum to be because it's a launcher and it sends
What's
them
2H
upward
again?
instead of outward.
Which one's 2H?
That would be this move.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually what I see when people that have Zartas that have played in like tournaments and shit, after
Mhm.
that they do either drill or the fucking Eddie hop
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then it
Exactly.
launches me into the fucking wall. And
Yep.
then you run up for a meaty.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to say. Like, couldn't you actually just like use it as a either combo ender or combo extender?
Well, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think most of these notes are in reference to its capability in neutral. But in combos, yeah, it's filler, you know.
Yeah.
There are routes
Okay.
in which it's useful. I
Okay.
think when it comes to damage, I don't have a good intuition for the min maxing on damage, so I can't say.
Have you played or have felt Nago before?
One more time.
Have you played or like felt how Nago plays before?
I've played him, but not in an advanced, not in
Would
any
you
kind of intermediate level.
would you okay? Would you say that it kind of feels this move at least feels like Nago's 6 each?
I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, no mind.
No
I
worries.
just try to like correlate moves between other characters, how they
Yeah.
would use it with Nago, since I only ever fucking played Nago.
Right. For your experience. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, no worries.
but yeah, thanks for answering.
Uh-huh. Any other questions? Okay.
Not from me.
Okay. So 5H. This is one of Zato's best moves. It's good in the corner. It's good in mid screen. It is extremely disjointed, so it calls out a lot of poke options. It's negative on block, but the distances at which you should be using it are going to be such that you should be okay afterward. And I have here, unlike far slash, it's much more worth the startup, even though it's 3 frames slower. 5H initiates a rock paper scissors situation because it frame traps into eddy summons, particularly it frame traps into 236p, which is pierce. And the follow up, the first hit of pierce is then +4. There's a 3-frame gap between those. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. You can also do leap, and that's a lot, which are drills, to play rock, paper, scissors with other options. So worth knowing. This is another move that I think you should be very afraid of. In the corner, there are sequences that will frame trap you, even though Eddie is not in play anymore, simply due to spacing. You can, for instance, microdash 5H to 2H, and then you're generally speaking at such significant spacing disadvantage and frame disadvantage that Zato doesn't always have the ability to run up 5-2-2H again, but some kind of reset situation is in play where you have not escaped the corner. 5D. I think this move explains itself. It combos on hit. It's the go-to overhead for every Zato player. Gatlings from 5K, 2K, and CS, so you can go low-high, you can go mid-high with the advantage of close slash. I mean, if you block this move and Eddie's and Eddie's gone, you should punish the shit out of the Zato player, because assuming they don't have meter and they cancel it with meter.
It's
yeah.
a war crime.
Yeah, just react, forehead.
Yeah.
2P is 5P but long and 1 frame slower. It's just the same move. Doesn't really need any more of an explanation.
Easy.
Give me that shit on Nago, please. Please make my 5K literally 6 frames. Or 2K 6 frames.
This is tied with 2K for the fastest button. But they have slightly different uses. I think in general you would probably rather use 2K if you were going to do a 2 Abare option instead of a 5 Abare option, but you should just do 5P. Like, it's just a better choice. Because 5 frames versus 6 frames is a huge difference in this game. It's a very, very significant difference. 2K is the calm before the storm of Zato's Okazeme game. So it's very non-committal. It's a low poke, and it's also a mix option. It's a go-to low mix option in pressure sequences, particularly in scissor pressure sequences. You will see this option heavily represented. But in the corner and in corner carry pressure sequences, this is still going to be a very important option. Because it's fast, it's responsive, and it's non-committal. And it does not send the opponent very far back, which is very important. Combos into 2D on any kind of hit extremely consistently. The range I believe the range on 2D is bigger than the range on 2K. So if you can hit 2K, you should be able to hit 2D, except for in situations I've missed this before. But generally speaking, you're gonna see this consistently. It is possible to tick throw with dash momentum. Neutral control. Yeah, this is the move. This is the move. The hurt box comes out before the hit box, and then the block string. Its viability in a block string is based on distance. Zato player will need to be conscientious of the distance. You can play a sort of rock, paper, scissors after this move connects, especially at longer distances. You have the opportunity as the opponent to IAD punish, or unless they are doing 2S 2-2H. You cannot jump out of 2S 2-2H. You have to hold that. So if they're not doing that, good for you. And if they are missing their confirm, good for you. You can hopefully get a punish. But just know that there are a few options here that are based on distance. And what you're commonly going to see are 2-2H and 5H. 5H will whiff at max range.
Do you happen to know what the frame difference is between the hurt box and the hitbox on this?
I don't. No, I don't.
That is A-okay.
I can look.
It should be like 1 or 2 frames.
Might say on Dust Loop.
It's probably like no more than 3, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of baited out sometimes with Nago's DP. Weirdly enough, because they were spaced enough for like them to whiff it, but like DP to just hit the hurt box without getting hit by.
Dust Loop doesn't even say.
I don't think it's gonna say. Yeah.
No, the frame data won't say, but it's usually 1 to 2 frames. from my experience personally.
Okay,
I think
that's
that it used to be bigger in the older games. I will just say this: this phenomenon doesn't actually usually come up as a problem for me personally. Maybe I'm just using the move well, but it is
Maybe.
something that one should be aware of, and you can counterpoke this move using preemptive buttons.
makes sense.
2H, another one of the best moves in the kit. This is a big ol' button. It's very slow. I say very slow. It's 13 frame startup, but it feels much slower than that. It's an anti-air, but only in the sense that that the Zato player will probably have to make a read, or you just kind of have to like fall right into the perfect place to use this button. This move is used a lot in combination with a pose to totally crush you when you're trying to jump in, because you jumped in like a goofball and didn't think about the fact that a pose exists. And it's a launcher. So most grounded counter hits will convert into this move, and then you'll get sent up in the air, and then you'll get hit by 236 AS, and then you'll get hit for a full combo. I think this is tied with 6H for the best counter hit starter in terms of damage, or maybe tied with 6H and 5H. They're all like level 5 or level 4. And this button in particular will convert into leap loops and significant corner carry, whereas a move like 6H you don't get as good of a punish off of.
Quick question: What's
up?
if you know the launch like value of this?
Nope.
Can you just okay?
Yeah.
I was gonna say like some characters just get launched mad by this move, but
Yeah, it's different on grounded and counter. It's definitely different on grounded and counter hit. Counter hit's super free. Grounded, yeah, it's a little bit more character dependent, but it
can you
just
loop it
depends.
like into itself with like a dash?
Counter hit you can do. So the counter hit punish is going to be 5H,
what I'm
214K, 5H, but normally no.
What I'm saying is if you like get a air counter hit on it, right? Air counter hit launch. Can you just dash up into another 2H?
No, you have to do 214K.
Okay.
Break the law
Okay.
because it reduces the
So the launch isn't as nutty as fucking Nago's 2H. Cool.
No, yeah, it doesn't like stall. It doesn't like totally stall you in midair. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I'm sorry that I'm converting it into my Naga knowledge, but you know,
No worries.
it's just the only way that I can understand it.
Yeah, that's how you understand the game. It's all good.
You'll hear a lot more Naga questions from me.
That's fine. So
It
2D.
might be a bit, you know, tedious after a while. 2D.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
It won't.
2D is the win condition. If you get knocked down, you're in a bad place, especially if Zato has meter. If Zato doesn't have meter, it's still going to be good for him, because he is interested in waiting as long as or making as much time as he can between, when he does and doesn't have meter. So you're taking a significant amount. You're going to take Okazeme here. Okazeme is on this character is really good, and this is basically like what you want to avoid getting hit by. Unfortunately, dash up 2K is like a pretty solid move, and then you get hit by 2D afterwards. So then you just have free. You're just getting hit. You're gonna get hit. Yeah, it's mostly used as a Gatling, but can be used as neutral. 6P. I don't know. I'm told this is one of the best 6Ps in the game. I think I buy it. It's extremely disjointed. It's very big and it's very active. You get a soft knockdown on normal hit, and you get a hard knockdown on counter hit. Without Roman cancel, you don't have that. Zato doesn't have that many conversion options, but like soft knock, like 6P into just raw summon is a pretty decent choice. So at the very least, like Zato gets Eddie out, which is fine. With Roman cancel, particularly if you get hit by this and then red Roman cancel comes out, with Eddie meter and the Roman cancel hits you, you're going to take a full combo. So this is a very important move for Zato, insofar as that many, I think, novice and intermediate Zato players are going to just sort of like run around and use this move because they really want you to try to poke them, and they really want to hit you with this move. This button, kind of like how Testament players play the video game. Smile.
I don't know. Testament players get fucked over by Naga so much that I don't care about them. But seriously,
Brutal.
no. Like if they mismatch their fucking round start 9 out of 10 times, I can just one tap them, and it's fucking
Yeah,
brutal.
I believe it. That sucks.
It's yeah, it's brutal for them, but I'm just like, hey, free round.
It happens. Sometimes you, LOL, you
That's
made
just the way it
one
goes.
mistake against a character.
Yeah, that's the way
Oh
it
no,
goes.
do you guys know Fat Gamer?
Let's keep it a little bit focused on the
Yeah, I hear it.
character breakdown for right now.
Okay, sorry.
Forbidden, yeah, just
Sorry.
because we have a limited time and we're recording for
I'm
YouTube,
sorry.
so
That's fine. That's fine. Sorry.
So 6K. I am a firm believer in this move, but it is not amazing. There are some setups where it is a good choice. It is reversal safe. There are situations where you can use it and you are reversal safe. You have a free overhead. It does force standing, which is kind of weird, but novel. That's a very particular thing that that kind of changes some frame data, but that's fine. I think the most important thing about it, and the thing that definitely differentiates it from 5D, is that it's special cancelable. So the situations in which this is going to be used are in combination when Eddie is out on the field, and then you can special cancel it into moves like Drunkard Shade, thereby making it effectively safe, resetting Eddie, and giving you the opportunity to continue your pressure. So it is super slow. It's 28 frames, which is the same amount of startup as Charge Dust, and you get arguably less out of it. There is a specific usage in which this is a reversal safe media option. There's a video of that somewhere, and it looks crazy. But the low recovery on this move allows that to be possible. So overall, weird move. You probably won't see it a lot, but just know that if you do see it, stand up. Please stand up. 6H. I love this move. It's sick as fuck. I think it's the coolest move in the game. It high profiles. Zato is airborne for 25 frames, and it is flight cancelable. This is also the other plus on hit move that Zato has. Most of his moves are negative or 0 on hit, meaning they aren't necessary. You have to use some kind of cancel option to make a lot of your hits burst safe, which is important. I think important to know. Now, what to be concerned about this move? So this move, if you block it, creates a 4-layer rock paper scissors situation. Arguably a mix-up. It kind of depends. The flight cancel offers Zato the ability to go high, go low, go to the ground and then high, go to the ground, and then go low and then go high again. So you have all this. You have a lot of freedom, or Zato has a lot of freedom if he connects this move to do almost whatever he wants with you. And one of the other kind of important things I think about this move is that it's an H move. So it's if Eddie is out while this move goes off, and you release H and don't do another negative edge move, oppose is going to come out, which I feel is part of the strength of this move in block strings. And I will show you an example of that later on. JP is a 3-hit air-to-air primarily. It has some usage in coming down to the ground. Actually, particularly after this move, flight cancel backward JP forward is like a very interesting frame trap that allows you to continue pressure when you land. For the most part, these days it's used as to cover jump outs and as a frame kill for overhead mix while Eddie's in play. JK is kind of a classic tick air to ground. Honestly, I think most of its use is in allowing for a Gatling to JD, acting as a hit confirm, kind of opening access to double overheads. But there arguably is a better option in JS. The JS is a very versatile move because Zato's entire body becomes a hurt box, or hitbox rather, and it can hit. I guess it can hit a lot deeper than JK can, although you can space JK very easily. And this move also Gatlings into JD. This move has cross-up potential both on a knockdown and mid-screen during block string sequences, so it's something to be aware of. Jump heavy. Yeah, this is a really good move. This is another one of Zato's best moves. It's super plus. It is really hard to anti-air properly because the timing can change depending on when the move starts. If it lands on hit, if this hits, he can convert into knockdown without worrying about it. Honestly, sometimes he can just go straight into JD, and you are now in an Okazeme situation. So this is a move that I think if I was playing against Zato, I would spend a lot of time learning how to anti-air this move, and I would spend resources to avoid getting hit by this in game and out of game, to learning how to deal with it, because it is so important for Zato. Even like something I do all the time is just like jump backward air dash, flight cancel air dash forward JH, and that is just like basically a triangle jump JH that gets me free advantage. It's just a very good choice. And it's super hard to anti-air because of how fast it is and because of how far JH goes forward. All right, JD is an advancing aerial. Staggers on grounded counter hit, launches on aerial counter. Super long startup, high recovery, minus on block, but it resets Zato's air momentum. Typically, this move is best in pressure sequences, and you will see it as an overhead option in the corner and in mid-screen, both before and after other moves. So sometimes you will see this as the starter for an overhead mix-up, or as the secondary mix layer in a pressure sequence. Super jump JD will turn Zato around, so you are instantly taking another mix-up if he uses this to cross you. All right. Pariah, you're the only one here, but do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I think that covers just about everything on the moves. Like the JD side change thing is very, very interesting. I didn't know the super jump made you change sides with that.
Yeah. Here, let me. You want me to show you really quick?
Sure, yeah. Because that's something we covered a lot of in the chip segment, where like watching the direction that he's facing when he's jumping is really important.
The direction that Chip is facing.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
that what you mean? Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And you can go low. You can go high. I have the dummy set to. Do that right now. You get a triple overhead, or you can go high, low, or yeah. So you're taking a few layers. That's scary to get hit by. The way you beat that mix up is jabbing.
Makes
Surprisingly,
sense.
yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So if there are no more questions, we will start talking about Zato moves. The classic one is summon, unsummon Eddie. Eddie appears on frame 20. Unsummon requires all 32 frames. Not much else to say about it. It is what it is. Eddie is out on the battlefield. What I will say right now, if I was to say anything else beyond just describing the move to you, unsummon is a particularly effective tool, obviously because it resets the gauge, but because it puts the opponent into frame trap situations. So if you see this, you do need to be concerned about how Zato is going to engage with you afterward, particularly if you're not knocked down. So it's 32 frames, which yes, it's pretty reactable, but spacing dependent. Based, what you can do is based on the spacing that you're at, and something like a situation where you're being hit by drills and then unsummon happens. The frame data might not necessarily be in your favor, such that you can actually engage with Zato without getting counter hit. So something to think about. Despite the fact that it's 32 frames, that doesn't necessarily account for the frame difference of moves that are hitting you while Eddie is unsummoned. Invite Hell is another, one of the standout Zato moves. Extremely active. It's a grounded projectile. Without Eddie, it acts as a combo ender. With Eddie, it acts as a combo filler. It's a strong meaty option, and it can be extremely plus, especially if the later active frames hit you, because Zato is more likely than not done with the animation by then. Generally speaking, in neutral, it's used for spacing and zoning. It's kind of a lot of the times, especially when Eddie's not available or when Eddie isn't in play yet, or maybe Zato doesn't feel comfortable bringing Eddie out just yet. 2-2H is going to be one of those options that Zato players will use to control the ground space. So kind of what I see happening a lot is people who are playing against Zato will make reads or are conditioned to jump in, and then either the Zato player is playing rock paper scissors with them, or the Zato player isn't paying attention enough, or they got hit because of the opponent's skill and timing, and then they get opened up. Oh, I wonder if this will start now.
Hey.
Oh yeah, there it goes. All right. So let's see, make sure that I didn't miss anything. Yeah, Drunkard Shade. So Drunkard Shade, this is a reflector. Super fast move. A frame trap from a variety of preceding moves. So this is like a very interesting choice, particularly in situations where Eddie might be about to die or dying, or even not available, where if the Zato player gets pressure, they may do a sequence where they end with Drunkard Shade because it's an effective frame trap. A lot of Zato's moves are negative, but this move has a fast startup and is very active, but the startup is slow enough to generally allow for opponents who are mashing to start their animation. So kind of an interesting choice. I think that it has niche uses in that regard. The biggest use the reason you will see it is because it slides Eddie across the battlefield. Eddie is invulnerable for 15 frames, cancels any action that Eddie is doing, and from there, Zato has the ability to tell Eddie to do whatever he wants. So worth, challenging this move when you can. I think to talk more about this move, so the duration of Eddie's dash is 30 frames. So Eddie is vulnerable for half of that, the later half, which means that if you're all the way across the screen, that's good for you because you can just mash when you see this move and you'll hit Eddie and Eddie will die. So the Zato player needs to be careful about when they use this, and hopefully they use it in a situation where Eddie goes behind the opponent so that Eddie can't be hit. I've included these on the right here. I've included the little dots with the frame data to kind of give you an idea of how each of the move's properties work relative to the total duration. So you can see that the green part is where Eddie is invulnerable, and the part is where Eddie is vulnerable, and how that relates to the other parts. Yeah. Oh, and it's a hard knockdown on hit. So you'll see this as an ender. Break the law, fully invincible. Zato can move forward and backward. Moving forward is faster than moving backward. That's a change as of the most recent battle patch. To make this move more useful as a cross-under tool, can significantly reduce this recovery of some moves. I actually talked about this earlier when Forbidden asked this question. Moves like 2H have very long recovery time, but if you cancel if you cancel 2H with 214K, you can make the move's recovery faster than it normally would be. It's a very good burst and YRC bait option. That's primarily how I use this move. I use it to when I think opponents are going to burst, and it gives me better punishes than blocking the burst because I don't move backward, and the recovery is lower than blocking the burst. In mid screen, you'll see this as a cross under option. So when Eddie's in play, I say you'll see this, but you might not actually see the move because it's very difficult to see, particularly if something like drills is on the screen. Mm-hmm. And the longer it's held down, the longer the recovery. That's important. Seconds. Over. Oh, 3 seconds. And I don't remember the rate at that time, but you can just check. You can check Dust Loop for that.
Cool.
Damned Fang. It's command grab. Fully restores Yeti gauge. Grants a hard knockdown at +7 advantage. That means that a lot of Zato's moves are going to hit you afterward. A common frame trap is 5H. A smarter frame trap after this move is 5K. 5K will beat reversals because it is active the frame that the opponent becomes active. So it will hit the opponent for 1 frame, which is generally going to beat somebody trying to do a reversal. And from there, Zato gets to continue his pressure because Eddie is out, or because Eddie is back. With Roman Cancel, it can create reset situations or wall break in the corner. It's possible to get a full combo off of this with a leap loop and do a reset. For example. Oh, I closed that. That's awkward. For example, screen. Whoa.
Hold on, having a little bit of connection issue.
Oh, no way.
Getting a little bit of robot-y, and it says the stream is ended.
Yeah, I know.
Please? There we go. You're back now.
Crazy. So I was just trying. Did you see the example I showed you or no?
Yes. Yeah, I saw the when I see into the It's a very,
Yeah.
very cool looking combo.
So yeah, this is a move to be concerned about. Whether you're
Yeah.
in the corner or you're in the you're in mid screen. It's especially with meter, it's going to be very problematic. Without meter mid screen, the Okazeme is not like incredible, but there is a rock paper scissors, and you can play on Zato can play on the fact that people don't know what to do. Actually, since we're here, I'll talk about that later. I think that would make more sense to just show. Supers. I think this super is really self-explanatory. It's just a big damage move. It has very high on prorated damage, but quickly prorates to do like, I don't know, okay damage. I really wish that that the damage on this move was like more Tabata, and it just like always did 4 billion damage. Hit confirms from 5H and 2H, which is important because if you get hit by that move, you're gonna fucking die. Like it's just gonna be sad for you. And so this is not a, there's no invulnerability, but the shark does remain on the screen if Zato gets hit. So if you as the opponent are in a situation where you are at low life and you are going to do something like make a heavy read and do something probably potentially risky, and Zato uses this as a pseudo reversal, and what you're going to do isn't going to kill Zato, you more than likely are going to die. So worth knowing. Don't underestimate the fact that this move can kill you.
That makes sense.
But other than that, it's mostly the damage super. So if Zato has Eddy meter and you're in a wall splat, it's better to do this super than Sun Void because this super will do more damage.
And
Sun
I have
Void.
one question about the Amorphous is
Yeah.
I used to hear this as a meme, but I started seeing more and more Zatos actually just like throwing it out in neutral, basically like bike and gun. Is that
Yeah.
like that is like a pretty valid kind of use of this? I mean, I guess because plus 12
It's
on
good.
block, it's
Yeah.
not too bad.
It's not the worst thing to do. So that's kind of that kind of touches on what I was just talking about, where especially I mean at like full screen, it's one of those things where it's like gonna waste time. So if I don't have Eddy meter and screen, maybe I would do Amorphous on the chance that I will catch you doing something. And if I'm not going to catch you doing something, I have the opportunity to approach behind Amorphous. And if I don't want to approach behind Amorphous, Zato has the ability to just wait and get meter again. So it's not the worst thing on the planet. I think there could be better ways to spend the meter, but that's always context dependent. So it's hard to say. Yeah. So
Cool.
it's not terrible. Doing that was kind of popularized by Gobo last year, and then a couple other Japanese Zato players started doing it. I don't see American Zato players do this as much. What you just described, like just throwing out Amorphous. And I think that's fair. I think that it's kind of like a silly, kind of gimmicky thing to do, but it does work sometimes, especially as a pseudo reversal. It can work. Sun Void. Yeah, this is a good super. Argued to be one of the best supers in the game because it refills Eddy gauge, safe on block, and sets Eddy on the field. And it has follow-ups, good follow-ups. So on block, if you block this move, Eddy will land in front of you, and Pierce is a true follow-up. K is a frame. That's a lot of drills is a frame trap. On hit, Pierce and Leap are true. So one thing you will see a lot is that if this move hits you but it doesn't break the wall, Leap will pick you up, and then now you're hard knockdown again. They can unsummon and reset you. What's important to know about this move, and there are some inconsistencies with this move sometimes due to gravity scaling issues, is that only the last hit is going to wall break. So what may happen sometimes is that this move will hit you for everything except the last hit. I don't remember how many hits there are. It's not that important. But then you'll land on the ground in front of Zato, and so will Eddy, and then you'll be hard knockdown, and you just have to take mix again. That doesn't happen commonly, but it happens enough to just understand that when it does happen, don't freak out. It's just because the last hit didn't hit you. All right, any questions?
I think that's it.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about Eddie's moves. So Eddie's moves have different frame data when performed using negative edge and command inputs. The command inputs also consume less meter than their negative edge counterparts. Command inputs also allow Zato to cancel his moves just like any special cancel. And the command inputs can be performed at any time during Eddie's actions. And if Eddie is in the middle of an action, they will buffer whatever the next action is for when Eddie finishes that action. So what does this mean? This means that the pioneering Zato player, the restless Zato player, has particularly more options available to him when because he will do command inputs. And there are certain strings and sequences that a Zato player would be unable to do if they performed the same sequence using only negative edge moves. Why is that important to you? That's important to you because it will change how you understand, it will change your intuition for how many moves are going to be in a given pressure sequence or a given punish. And so as for you as the opponent who is fighting Zato, it's important for you to keep track of how many moves Eddie has performed because he has a limited amount of resources. So there will be a point where Zato, we'll talk about this later in pressure structures, but there will be a point where a Zato player will have to make a decision about whether or not he will want to unsummon Eddie to try to reset the situation and reset his pressure, or do generally something like a pose and go for some kind of finishing mix-up to give himself a significant advantage. For instance, a wall break and an area change with a super finish, right? So when taking this into consideration, know that the differences between negative edge and command inputs for Eddie are not uniform. It's not always like half. Sometimes it change for some moves it's slightly different, but it is going to kind of, for someone who would want to really understand what's going on when they're fighting Zato, it's going to add more work to how much studying you have to do. And I'll talk slightly about them, about the differences, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the first one is Pierce. This is 236p or release P. So I've listed here up top the frame data, and you can see that the biggest changes are going to be the startup of the move. The command normal version of the move has longer startup than the negative edge version of the move. This is typically the case. So you can see here through each of these examples, if you look at just the startup, 19 frames, 13 frames versus 20 frames versus 27 frames. So the command normal version is going to be slower. So there is, but at the same time, it's a difference of 8 frames, or not 8 frames. In this case, it's 8 frames. So really, how much slower is it? Hard to say. Hard to say, but it's worth being aware of. Anyway, Pierce is a 2-hit advancing mid. There's a 6-frame gap between the hits, so if you buffer any 5-frame or faster move, you will kill Eddie. Zato players are going to be doing their best to cover this gap. That is the point of what they're doing generally when this move comes out. And the first hit of this move initiates rock paper scissors because of this gap. Particularly when it's like close to you in the sense that the move doesn't hit you at max range. Each use of Pierce uses about 1/3 of the gauge. And let me double check the value on that one for command. So I have it right. I see. So the Command version uses about 2/10, so a fifth. So the negative edge version of this move uses a third of the gauge, so he can use it 3 times, right? But the command normal version, the command input version, uses a fifth, so he could do it 5 times. So you can see that that's a significant difference. Oops. Any questions?
No, that's
kinda
just
said a
that's
lot.
very interesting though. I had no idea that this difference existed. So this explains a whole lot actually.
Yeah, this is gonna be used a lot to confuse you. So drills, or that's a lot. 2-3 K and release K. So 4 drills are gonna come out, each sequentially after the other. They are projectiles. Each drill counts as an independent action, and this move can be canceled at any point. And the number of drills are gonna, when a drill comes out, it is on the screen for a defined duration. So if I summon the second drill and cancel the frame after the drill comes out, it is going to stay on the screen. That is how I actually showed you an example of that earlier with the reset that I showed you, Damned Fang, where I summoned a single drill, and then Kai landed on the drill, which was on the screen after Eddie had been unsummoned. So this is something that allows Zato to pressure you from full screen. One common example of this is that Zato may push you across the screen, or maybe Zato will hit you with leap, and then he'll be full screen. So he won't have the ability to actually like chase you down and continue punishing you. But what he might do is summon is release K for 1 drill, so that drill hits you meaty, and then he unsummons Eddie, so that he retains advantage because he can unsummon Eddie, run up to you while you're still blocking that meaty drill, and there you go. So that segues nicely into the fact that this is the best Okuzeme tool in Zato's kit. And this super duper active move not only pushes you backward, but will be active while you wake up and will continue to be active. It can be jumped out between drills 3 and 4. I have not seen someone do this successfully in 2 years. So
Okay.
Good luck. Most of the time it's covered. So yeah, good luck. But worth practicing. I mean, I think this is one of those things that a lot of people just don't know. Zato players have known it the whole time. We workshopped that very, very quickly. And it's worth considering whether or not you can do this. It might be, I don't think it's been changed, so I just don't see people do it. Oh, I should also mention, you know this if you played Zato, but this is like ground is just like screen control, like just ground screen control, and you're gonna be forced to play rock paper scissors. Leap. This move haunts people's dreams. It's a good move. Calls out jumpers, so if you have single-minded defensive options, you're gonna have a bad time. Carries the opponent on hit and block, and the second hit grants a hard knockdown. It is the cornerstone of Zato's combo game. This move does less damage now, but still does an incredible amount of damage. And because of its hard knockdown, because it grants a hard knockdown, can be unsummoned afterward, or Zato can unsummon Eddie afterward to reset pressure. So this is the move. Like, it's corner carry, it's high damage, it's hard knockdown, it's pressure, it's like everything that Zato wants it to be. The way that you beat this move is by 6P'ing it, by dashing under it, like literally just run forward and crouch. You will be surprised. Chip players do it all the time. It's like the best thing to do. And crouching. So 6P, practice that. Dash under and crouch, practice that. And stop jumping as a defensive option, and you will stop getting hit by this move. Probably.
I'm writing that one in all caps for mine.
When I realized at a certain point that I got all the way to floor 10 just by calling people out jumping with this move. That was like a the way that I reset my pressure when I was learning the game.
Mhm.
It's good. It's just that good. If this move hits you, Zato gets a full combo. You don't want to get hit by that move. All right, oppose. I put the frame data up here in like much bigger normal letters than normal, a much bigger screenshot, because I really wanted to emphasize that like how big the guard point is. And then the other thing about this move is the significant difference in guard point between and startup on between the negative edge and command input moves and the guard point between those two. So I mean, look at that, 8 to 59 versus 16 to 67. Is that? Oh, actually, that's the same amount of time. It's just shifted backward, so that makes sense. I thought it was different. So yeah, this is not a move that can be used on reaction, considering it takes an entire second to come online. The wait, why does it say? Oh, that's really weird. It has infinite guard point. Yeah, for all normals and specials. It's used to bait over aggression and create safety for Eddie or Zato during pressure sequences. You can beat it with burst. You can beat it with your supers. You can beat it by grabbing Zato. Do that. Highly recommend you don't press a button when you see this move. You just grab. Can be beaten by Happy Chaos gunshots, sad face, and by Red Roman cancel. So if you connect with Zato on block or hit, and you have 50 meter, Red Roman cancel. Just do it. Just do that. Even if Zato blocks your Red Roman cancel, you're at advantage. It's like you're like plus 13. Do it. Don't freak out. This move is not like insane. It's good, but it's not godlike. It's not like impossible to beat. It's impossible to beat because you like to instant air dash in like a goon, and then you die. That's why it's hard. But that's why it exists. Because Zato sucks. And he needs to be babied he needs to be protected like a little baby. So this move is very easy to beat. You just need to do some very specific things. Some very, very specific things.
The Happy Chaos gunshot thing just sounds like a insult.
Bro, it's so cursed.
That's so fucked
It's
up.
so cursed.
The Red RC though, that's huge. That's something I gotta get to my muscle memory for fighting Zato, I think.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It's really good. Yeah, dude, Happy Chaos is crazy. The curse still hits me when I'm in Break the Law too. It's ridiculous. It's like, why? Anyway, any questions? We are
No.
at 1 hour. I was right.
I
knew I would need 2 hours.
perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna take. We're gonna take a break.
Sounds good.
And then I think we'll take 5. I will be back then. See you soon.
No worries. We'll be here.
Let's talk game plans. Before I do that,
Meat and potatoes.
oops. What the hell? Wait, what the heck? Had it been on the wrong screen this whole time? Dude,
No, you've been good. You've been good. You've been good. We've been on the PowerPoint.
so weird. Okay. All right. So game plans. So round start is an interesting situation for Zato to be in. I don't play other characters, so I can't really say how their other characters round start options change from matchup to matchup. But Zato's don't stay really all that uniform. My belief is that his options are weaker than most at the beginning of the game, and the options that insofar that even a lot of his options don't even reach, but the options that do reach are far slash and 2S, both of which don't necessarily get you to where you want to be. 2S puts you in a better position than far slash, but there are a lot of faster options that will beat 2S. And this is actually one of those situations where I think that the hurt box coming out before the hitbox on 2S becomes a problem. So in my experience, particularly in some of the more troublesome matchups, I guess, or the more difficult matchups for Zato, utilizing the ideas of waiting and using preemptive action at round start is a good idea. And what I mean by preemptive action in this case would be something like jumping, or like gosh. Trying to think of something that isn't just like
You're thinking
5H,
about
like a
okay, yeah.
disjointed move, like some move that is going to, or like 6P, like a counter poke move that is going to act in some ways as like a read to what you think your opponent is going to do. Waiting is really good, but you have to be very quick on the draw with your response at round start. What I see myself doing a lot now, and maybe this is just a meta shift thing, or I can't really say, is that I see myself waiting and kind of walking backward, and then my opponent will do something, and I'll like dash in 2K, 2D to beat their to like punish their recovery, and then I get knocked down, and then I get Okazeme, and then I start my game plan. In longer sets is really important to play to. This is true for any character, but I think for Zato in particular, you end up getting a lot if you end up paying attention to, if you're paying attention to what your opponent does, simply because of the snowball effect of Zato's playstyle. So if you end up putting your opponent in a disadvantageous situation and you get your game plan started and you get them all the way to the corner off a round start, that's very good for you, and that's very possible if you are being aware of what options your opponent likes to present at round start. So I'm saying all this from the Zato's perspective, but you can flip it all around and get an understanding of, if you're fighting a Zato, it's important to mix stuff up so that you're not doing the same thing over and over again, and try to be creative in your options so that they can't get a handle on what you're going to do on round start. That's normal. That's normal round start stuff. But because of how weak Zato is, because of how swingy his playstyle is, it's very important that you get the advantage first. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a situation from which you cannot win. Something to be aware of is that many Zatos like to start backdash into summon. It's just easy, it's safe, and it probably works a lot of the time. If you see this, you should start calling it out. But obviously be aware that once you do call it out, or maybe they do it once just to bait you into doing something about it, then they have the opportunity to stuff your approach. So just be aware of that.
Big fan of pretending you don't have a good round start so that you can smoke them with your good round start.
Yes, sir. All right. So Zato is strong in the mid screen, especially if Eddie is available. This is, we're talking about zones of influence. This is where Zato is good, especially at slightly wider than, I think, what is commonly called mid screen. Zato has the ability to force you into rock paper scissors situations with how you would approach. If you give Zato enough space to summon Eddie without a move, and then Eddie can crawl forward and use something like Pierce, then you're basically stuck. Pierce is so plus. You are now in a pressure situation, particularly if they cancel into something like That's a Lot, where now you're taking, a bunch of pressure. You're locked down, and Zato can just run at you from full screen, and he could even unsummon, resummon, and then do a reset situation. So the Zato player's goal in mid screen, all that was to tell you that the Zato player's goal in mid screen is to put you into a block string. The easiest way for him to do that safely is by using Pierce or That's a Lot, and both of these will easily carry you to the corner, especially if you've given him enough space to do that. Your back is already probably close to the corner, if his isn't. Without Eddie, the Zato player's goal is to create time for the gauge to refill, and they will either do that by zoning or by clever use of Zato's normals. In this situation, a hard knockdown is still very good for Zato because it gives them a lot of time between when you get back up and when we'll be ready to attack them again. They'll have Okazeme. By the end of that hard knockdown, it's very likely they'll have Eddie meter back because it refills pretty quickly. And Zato's Okazeme is still good without Eddie, so you have to be aware of that. If Zato So if Zato's opponent is aggressive, counterplay will net Zato a huge combo if precisely executed. So if you as the opponent are being overzealous and you're approaching, if you are doing everything you can to get in, and I think one of the things that it's important to realize in fighting Zato is that the emphasis on who should be approaching and who should be defending is extremely important in the dynamic of the matchup. And recognizing how that is changing is also really relevant. Because if you are being too aggressive to the point where Zato can just throw up a pose, for instance, if Zato is going to get counter hit off of a pose from you or on you, then your half your life bar is gone. And not only that, it's very likely that you're going to be taking another mix-up. You're going to be put into another Okazeme situation because his pressure is so loopable. That's the idea. So you do need to be very careful when approaching Zato if Eddie or even 50 meter is available, because of what I said earlier, where if there are a bunch of red RC options where Zato can create a reversal situation. So you need to be very aware of that. You need to be very conscientious of attacking into something like a pose. You need to be very aware of how your character can play around the mid-screen rock, paper, scissors. That's leap, and that's a lot, and 6P. Those are the three, and 2-2H. Those are the four moves that I think you need to be very, the primary zoning tools. You need to be very conscientious of how your character is going to play around them. And then you just need to be patient. There's a space where you will have the advantage. You want to try to hold on to that space. This is the same. This is true for any character in any fighting game ever. But you need to be careful with how you move in and out of that space. So in the corner, Zato is one of the best characters in the game. So his priority is to mix you, and he's got a lot of options to do that. It's easily done for two reasons. He has easy access to high-low and strike-throw mix, and there's a lot of visual noise, like a lot of visual noise. It's hard to watch Eddie and Zato at the same time. And if you're not familiar with the structure of his pressure, you will easily and quickly feel lost. So watching the meter is key, but it would serve you to know how many times Eddie can perform actions with the meter. And we've talked about that. Having an intuition for this will free your mental stack so you can watch Zato's hands to identify when changes in pressure are happening. So we've talked about command inputs already. Those are called clap cancels because Zato is going to clap. There's an audio cue and there's a visual cue. There's two visual cues. There's a concentric circles that appear around Eddie, and then Zato claps his hands. So being aware of those will let you know when changes in pressure are happening. And especially if there's an unsummon that has occurred. You really want to be able to identify the summons because those are primary reset points. And if you can't see them, then you're going to struggle. The good Zatos are going to be doing that. The bad Zatos are not. And there are ways to get around having to do that. But the Zatos who are not doing unsummons are going to have much more concrete ways, or rather are going to be susceptible to much more concrete counterplay than Zato players who are unsummoning. What I mean by that is a Zato player who who drains all of his Eddie meter without 50 meter to restore it, for instance, so he can't follow up, he can't use Sun Void as an ender to reset his pressure, has to now make a hard read or play some kind of conditioning system with you so that he can continue his pressure. And because Zato as a character is rather limited in the amount of things that he can do by himself, he doesn't have a lot of ways to actually maintain pressure in, I guess the word I want to use is like responsible, because it's like they're just fake. Like they're not very real ways to continue pressure. They rely on you being scared. They rely on you not knowing what to do, and they rely on you making the wrong choice. So it's kind of a long digression, but don't be afraid of Zato players who just drain their meter without good ways to recover it.
Makes sense.
Meterless reversals and fuzzy jump are particularly strong against Zato, so use them. Also YRC. YRC is one of the strongest options against Zato. It is particularly troublesome to bait. The way in which you have to bait it, or the way in which Zato has to bait it, requires him to sacrifice quite a bit of his pressure. Much more so than if he's trying to bait burst. So be conscientious of when you can use YRC. Using it around the time that he would use his overhead is a good choice. And then in mid-screen, there's mid-screen Akazeme situations in which you can use YRC when he's approaching you. And it's difficult for him to block those. Zato is one of the worst characters in the game on defense. So please abuse the shit out of him, because you should. So Zato's best choices, I think, are to hit you with a Barre 2P, 5P, and 2K. This makes stagger pressure really effective against Zato. Jumping out is another strong option because he has 2 effective air dashes in the form of JD and Flight. Baiting this or having quick reactions is going to get you either a full punish, or at the minimum, he's going to go back into the corner. So do be aware of how you can take advantage of this. Something to be concerned of is that, or things to be concerned about, oppose is a real threat even when Zato is in the corner. If you give him enough time to use oppose, which is right around a second, you will be in a situation where your pressure cannot continue, and in worst case, you will get counter hit. So don't do that. Or don't let him do that. Amorphous has some use as a metered reversal, which we've talked about. YRC is also very good for Zato. Not almost exclusively, but he has a good amount of frame advantage. Something like run up Damned Fang is pretty good. But also something as simple like 2K, 2D, 22H will push you back rather far. And then Zato will have breathing room to play basically another mix-up with you. Chances are you won't be able to play a high-low mix-up. Chances are you'll have to play like some kind of timing mix-up based on the spacing. And he would like that. He would very much like that because it gives him an opportunity to be right. Okay, another pause for questions.
I think that's pretty straightforward so far.
Okay. All right. Okay, Pariah, are you able to play and record at the same time? It's okay if you're not.
Yes, I am. Give me 1 second, though. I just had something show up at the door.
Doesn't look like we're gonna have all the time in the world, but that's okay.
Yeah, I can most definitely do some playing at the same time here. For a little 5H RPS, we take those. Do you have a room code, sir?
I will in just a second.
Perfect.
It's 090098.
09. Are you a random room code person?
No.
Ooh.
No, I guess. Oh, it's zeros. Oops.
Oh, that's fine.
I forgot it. I forgot it, but could be letters.
Oh no, it's all numbers now. So
Oh, is it only all numbers? Okay.
yeah, they did that in the recent one. Search for existing rooms. You said 090098.
Yep.
In search. Hey, it's Kafka. Hello. I can pop over to my. For sake of this, we'll pop over to the fighting game scene. I think my webcam should already be off because it's
We're just doing training, by the way.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I want you right now to just block and then try to mash.
Okay.
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 So that was 5H into Pierce. So if you try to mash, it will catch you. It's 3-frame gap. Now just block the first hit of Pierce and try to mash.
Okay.
Oops, that didn't happen. Whoopsies.
Okay.
You might not have been able
yeah.
to. Oh, why is it laggy? Oh, yeah, so you traded.
Okay.
So that's fine, but not the best for you. So what's happening here is that 5H gives me the opportunity to do 3 things. I can do Pierce, which can't be interrupted, and has a frame advantage, so then I get a block string right. Oh, it's kind of weird. Why is my internet like that right now? Oh well, that sucks. Oh, probably because I'm streaming at the same time.
A little bit of an
I
internet
don't need
moment.
to do that anymore, huh? Should I be streaming right now, or
You don't
got
need
the
to be.
recording?
Yeah, I got the recording.
That's probably why. So you can see that if 236P connects, you're taking a block string after. So let's reset. Now you can try to mash again. So you got hip there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm closer, oh, you should be able to mash that.
I was a little late on that.
Okay. There you go.
There
so
we
you
go.
can mash that. So that's if I try to do that's a lot instead of Pierce.
Okay.
So at this distance, I don't think Pierce connects. Oh, it does connect. But what's important here is that if I do 236K, I get more frame advantage, which is why I might want to do it. And I'm going to corner carry you. But you can mash and you can jump. So try jumping instead.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Now, I want you to try jumping again.
Okay. Aha.
So doing leap is what's going to catch your jumping. And then, depending on spacing, the second hit will connect with you. Maybe do a hard knockdown. It's hard to. That's all. That's all the thing. Now the way to beat that would be to maybe anti-air on reaction. Test him. Try 6Ping.
Yeah. Good
Check
button.
that out. Yeah, very good button. So, and that can be hard to do, and you're playing rock, paper, scissors, so it might not be the best thing for you. But you can see that right here, we're playing 1 rock, paper, scissors. Now, if 236P hits you, you're playing another set of rock, paper, scissors, which
Okay.
is the next thing we need to talk about. So, let's see. The primary thing that's going to happen here is that 236P1 will connect, and then you will play rock paper scissors based on what you think I will do afterward.
Okay.
And there's 2 things that can happen here. I think you'll have to practice mashing. I don't remember off the top of my head if you can mash in between the hits after when it starts this way. I don't think you can, but we can do this. Oops.
My bad.
So if you're just blocking.
Yep. Right. I see that situation.
You tried to
a lot.
mash. I beat your mash by doing Drunkard Shade, and then I continued my block string by doing negative edge P. So that's one option. The next option would be for me to cancel into That's a Lot, which is what is a consistent way to beat mashers. Whoops. Ready? Let's do this again. That's the universal masher beater option.
Okay.
You can jump, so try jumping out of this first hit appear or after the first hit appears. Right? You might just need to be doing. Yeah, so the timing. So if you get the timing right, you can jump out, but I can beat that by doing leap, canceling into leap. And then this isn't super relevant for you, but characters with meterless reversals, this is a good choice.
Okay.
Because oppose will beat the reversal, and then I get to run up and do that. And
Yeah,
I
you get all the sauce.
I get all sorts of meaty sauce. So you can see that aside from the actual just like letting that finish, right? And you're just like, okay, I'll just take it. Oh, I missed my dash. I'll just take it. I'll take the corner pressure. We'll go. You can play RPS here, and you have the opportunity to do a few different things. So it's not an inescapable situation. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. That's kind of the primary mid-screen rock. The other rock paper scissors point is going to be in the corner, which if you let's take this to the corner. Okay. So I want to pause. If I pause, does it pause your screen too?
Are you paused right now?
Yeah.
Then no.
Okay, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. That's fine. Let's. Thank you for being my. Being my assistant on that one.
Honestly, a little surprised that you're the first person who's done that.
Yeah, me too.
Walk back.
So what we'll do now is I'm gonna show you some situations, and we will go over. I'm gonna have you play. I'm not gonna have you play Guess the Mix. I'm gonna have you think about what's gonna happen next. Okay, so I'm gonna start a pressure sequence, and then I'm going to pause it, hopefully timing it right, and then I will ask you what you think. What you think is available to Zato. Okay, can you see the stream?
And we're back. Perfect.
Okay. Oops, yeah, I didn't pause.
There, I'd almost always be expecting, what is it, JD cancel there, and then into like the multiple overhead string.
Okay. So my first question was actually, what is going to happen here? Like, are you in a rock paper scissors situation, or are you just a mix up? What do you think is happening here?
You're just a mix up, right? Because oppose is out.
No.
Oh, really?
You are playing rock paper scissors. So you have the opportunity to, so in this case with JH, you have the opportunity to fuzzy jump here. And what's going to happen is this JH, so the JH, yeah, I can Gatling it into JD. I actually don't see that happening here, because the momentum on the JH is so fast that I don't think I actually have the time to JD, but I could try it after this. But what I'm hoping to show you here is that you have the opportunity to fuzzy jump, and this is a really common setup for grab because the oppose blocks mashing, but it doesn't beat jump out. And so when Zatos represent this option, you are basically being conditioned to jump. And from there, you have the opportunity to escape or just jump and wait, I would recommend air dashing out.
Okay, so you're basically waiting for the drill like hit stun to finish, or the slash the JH hit stun to finish, and then you're jumping right after that.
Yeah, check this out. Oops, I missed it that time. Missed it that time too. I'll just do normal grab.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can do command grab that too. And I did it the first time, but I missed it the other 2 times.
So what's the actual, like, as far as that setup goes, what's the actual like tell for that actually being the throw setup? Is it the oppose being out basically?
It's the oppose. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the oppose. So it's the oppose coming out. I think in general when you're in the corner, you see oppose come out, you jump.
Okay.
That's not me trying to get you guys to do the wrong thing. I think that oppose is the best thing to do, or that to jump is the best thing to do there, but do not hit a button. Do not jump and press a button. Like, it bewilders me how many people see oppose, then they jump and press a button. Like, yes, you avoided the grab, but now you've given me the opportunity to punish the hell out of you because you've connected with oppose and you're going to get counter. So, yeah, that's the tell there. That's the tell. And I can't do the JD there because the momentum on JH is too high. So I land before it lets me Gatling into JD. However, if I were to do, whoops, JS, I might have the opportunity to, but it's a little bit tougher. I don't usually do it this way. I think in the corner, what I see a lot of Zato players doing now is starting the overhead sequence with JD, instead of like doing that. It's possible.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I see it too. I mean, I know that this is taught to people. Oops. I know that this is taught to people as. Oops. I mean, that sucks. That's taught to people as like the unfuzzy mix up, because you can do the same sequence low instead of high.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so you can start it the exact same way, so it looks the same, and so then you go low. But yeah, both are good. Both are good. I see most pro players do that first, because you get float cancel afterward, and in my mind, doing the float after is more ambiguous. But that's just my opinion. I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I wanted to show you this. That's what I want to show you instead. Change windows. Open this first. Let me just make sure this is what I want. Okay. Now, this is going to be a similar situation, but it's going to start in the mid screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Pariah.
Sorry, I'm muted. I see your
That's
files
okay.
open currently.
Yeah,
Yep.
it should be a video. It's a video. Okay. Now what?
I see oppose, so I'm fuzzy jumping, right?
Okay, that's a good choice actually. That will beat 2 things. This is slightly different though. This is slightly different. So what's key here is about how I have gotten oppose out, 1, and 2, the move that you're being hit with. So what did we learn about 6H earlier?
Oh, it's flight cancelable.
It's flight cancelable. So now what is so knowing that it's flight cancelable, and knowing that, I'll tell you this, that generally flight canceling something improves its frame data. So now what do you expect?
That means it's more likely going to be multiple overheads because you're going to flight cancel into another overhead.
Totally, that's an option. Yeah, I mean, you just saw the ambiguous JS setup, right? So it could be overhead, double overhead. It could be overhead low. It could be empty flight low, right? And it could also be empty flight grab.
Okay.
So in this situation, it's going to be double overhead. And one thing I want to point out is, oh, I didn't have it sent to 0 meter here, but look at how much meter gain this is. This is a standard block ring. And I'll go over pressure sequences in just a second.
Holy cow.
So he's at like, if he was at 0, he'd be at like 45 meter right now.
Did he start at 0 risk too?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this is a very high risk sequence. Oppose is really high risk. So you can see now, and here's the same sequence, but no, that's just extra stuff. But
Right.
you can see that this is like a standard mid-screen route that's gonna enter the opponent, you in this case, as into like a four-way mix, multiple mix-ups. So kind of the interesting thing here is that all of those fully exhausted the eddy meter, and in that last one I used the meter that I had gained, or rather the meter that I had, to use RC. But it's possible to do a similar sequence and not necessarily have enough meter to reset eddy, but reset the situation as a whole. So let's kind of cover the structure of these sequences right now. The first thing that I think is important to think about is whether or not we're summoning eddy from mids, or from a knockdown, or from pressure. So we just went over the RPS on Pierce, and I just showed you some examples. Oops, I need him to block.
Oh, will you reshare your screen, by the way?
Oh, yeah, my bad.
No, you're good.
Alrighty, can you see?
Hold on, I'm getting 2 blue boxes. I'm gonna try dropping and rejoining real quick. Home. Board.
Well, I think it might not actually be loading. I don't think it was you. How's that?
There we go. We're in.
Okay. So let's look again at a common corner carry sequence from mid-screen from just normal pressure. And so now you had the opportunity, I'll show you that again. So you have the opportunity for counterplay there, especially because the unsummoned takes up a considerable amount of what might be wiser for a Zato player. So that in particular would have caught maybe like jump, or that would have been a hit confirm where the 2-2H connects and then the leap connects for a hard knockdown. So let's see here. Let me see if I can set this up so that you can see that. Oh, that's funny. It's because there's gaps. How do I want to do this? That's actually illustrative, actually, because it illustrates the point that there are natural gaps in Zato's pressure,
Right.
and that if you're just mashing wildly, you will. So don't mash wildly. Particularly in the spacing between Pierce, and particularly in the space between the end of Pierce and 2S22H, there is a gap. And if you get picked up by that, then Zato gets a confirm, gets a combo.
Okay.
To kind of broadly speak about the structure of these sequences, what's going to happen when you when Eddie is brought into play from a pressure string is that you as the opponent are going to be in hit stun. Commonly, the first way that Eddie is going to come into the battlefield is going to be Pierce. Whether that's Pierce through a sequence like this, or it's Pierce through something like this. Either way, I get to play, like Zato gets to start doing something. Even at a distance like this, you are now in a block string. So so you see why it's critical for us to have covered the Pierce, rock, paper, scissors, especially when we're talking about 5H and the sequences that can follow from there. Now, when it comes to an actual knockdown, now we have to talk about Okazaki, and we're kind of running out of time. And I knew that we would because the dedicated character. I don't have time to talk about it.
Is a crazy character.
But you can see that Okazeme from this situation is really bad for the opponent. Knockdown without Eddie looks something like this. You can see how meaty that was. Oops, I did it early that time. It's doing this is not good. So actually, let's just cover Okazeme. Let's just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Without Eddie, you'll commonly see close slash into a sequence that will allow them to summon Eddie. 2S into a sequence that will allow them to summon Eddie. Or if the range isn't right, you know, I've been in situations where, actually, we can cover this. If I get a soft knockdown, either with like 6P or 2-2H, then run up and doing 2S will typically counter hit somebody trying to do something off of their recovery. Now that's not a really great way of doing Okazeme, but in that spacing, there's not much more that Zato can do. So that's kind of worth knowing. It's worth knowing that you don't necessarily need to hold that. But
yeah.
I think the thing to be really concerned about is what happens when Eddie gets summoned. And chances are you're gonna see one hit of one drill minimum. If they want to carry you to the corner, they're gonna use all the drills and they'll do a high-low mix-up. So right here we have drills. And that's a high-low mix. And here, same thing. Now, the other alternative is doing scissor pressure with Drunkard Shade. And what's particularly troublesome about this is that if you're getting hit by drills, the frame advantage on drills is so high that unsummoning allows him to reset the situation if you're just blocking. Now, we're kind of out of time, so I don't have all the time to enumerate all the different ways for us to combat that. But what's going to be really relevant here is paying attention to how a Zato player likes to structure his pressure. And when it comes to the structure, it's almost always going to be Eddie move, Zato move. Eddie move, Zato move. The only Eddie move that allows Zato to do other stuff while it's happening, generally speaking, especially at mid-screen, is going to be That's a Lot. And when That's a Lot is out, you're going to have to take a mix. Almost all the time you're taking a mix.
Okay.
Now, for you as the opponent of Zato, it's important for you to be conscientious of when you can challenge, and it's almost always during when Zato is going to do a move, not when Eddie is doing a move. The situations where we've discussed when Eddie is doing a move, that you can challenge, we've already talked about. So you can 6p leap, you can mash in between the hits of Pierce, and you could potentially jump out of that's a lot, but it's going to be. Now, the opportunities for you to challenge otherwise are when Zato relinquishes strong pressure to try to run a different kind of mix-up on you in a way to catch you off guard. So something like we've talked about earlier where Oppose came out. Oppose came out in a way that signaled grab, that JH summoning Oppose. He's trying to prevent you from mashing. And if you mash, you'll either get grabbed or you'll get counter hit. So jumping there is a very strong choice. And in the corner when actually I think Oppose is kind of like the go-to tell for you to take an opportunity to get out. And in that situation, jumping is a really good choice. But you always have to run the risk of getting caught by a clap cancel leap. So, it's my dismay that we haven't had the opportunity to go through all the different ways that Zato structures his pressure, because they're not infinite, but very, very varied. Very varied.
Mm-hmm.
And every Zato player is going to do things differently. But I hope that at this point, I've given you a better understanding of how the different moves interact with each other and how Zato plays alongside Eddie as his partner, so that you can, at the very least, learn more about how your character will fight Zato. Because the reason that makes that Zato is so strong is that the options or the ways in which you would combat Zato are not uniform across the cast and from situation to situation. He almost always has an option for countering a way that you use, a strategy you use to get around something he was doing. That's what makes him a good character. But that's also what makes him very difficult.
Kind of like an infinite ceiling, technically, but an infinite ceiling that would requires you having an insane mind palace lab in the middle of a fight.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think for lack of time, I'm gonna cut it. And Pariah, you were really the only one here, so if you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I can hopefully answer them.
Yeah, I got a couple. They'll be relatively quick fire, just because they're kind of the questions that I try to make sure we hit for every character. Is bursting against Zato. Generally, are there parts that are like naturally burst safe you really want to avoid? Obviously, if you're halfway across the screen and getting carried by Eddie, you don't want to be bursting, but
yeah. I would say, so one thing you'll get hit with, and that's when you kind of get like, okay, just do one. Oh, I don't have meter. So when you're in a leap loop, it's going to be important for you to burst when you're safe, or when you're close to Zato. So there will be a situation where you like land, you get land on the ground and a hard knock next to Zato. That's the situation where you want to burst. There are some ways to cover that, and naturally Zato can wait to block. Kind of the classic don't block after close slash. I've mentioned a few times actually that there are only 2 moves that Zato has that are plus on hit, and those are 5k and 6h. Most other moves can be burst, with the exception of like close slash. Don't do that. You can 2h is another good burst point. So 2h is a standard combo filler. It's high damage. You'll almost always see it, and especially if you're in the corner, burst there, because you will hit Zato. You will almost always hit Zato unless he is really trying to burst bait you. Let me check out Plutow's comment. Wild Throat, no. Well, it depends on. Well, yeah, it depends on who's first. Yeah. So like if you hit it first before I do, then yeah. I think that's true for any command grab. Yeah. Pride, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Because it's pretty actually not super tough to answer. I think most times that you can burst Zato is a good time to burst Zato. You just have to be aware of him baiting your burst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then meter usage on defense. I know YRC is very good against Zato because it generally gets rid of Eddie. But FD is useless mostly.
No. So FD is important. If I can set the dummy to FD. I don't even know how to do that. Block type. We go here. Oh, it's not actually blocking. That's important. What I just showed you. You might have missed it.
Oh, yeah.
When that doesn't connect, what happens, Pariah? What did we talk about?
You get punished.
Maybe, but what did we talk about that Zato get?
That he doesn't get all of the 5H RPS Pierce stuff.
Nope. He does not have a safe way to bring Eddie into the game. So it's this, this first FD is not super important. Whoa. Oh, it is the first FD actually. So FDing those two moves is pretty relevant. And if you manage to FD fucking Far Slap, God, this move is so lame.
Welcome to full screen.
Yeah, then it's just, it's over. So yeah, FDing that core sequence, because that's like a core Gatling. It almost always you're gonna see close slash 2S 5H. So FDing the close slash and the 2S are gonna be really critical if you wanna do something like that. But what happens is that'll start to happen if they recognize that you're doing that wrong. And then there are also this is like a slightly different situation where now I don't necessarily have the same frame advantage on Pierce that I did before, but Zato does have the ability to bring Eddie into the battlefield right after 2S.
Right.
But you have the opportunity to like jump out and do some other things.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then I think
good.
that's
a good question.
I think that my last one is just the one that we hit everybody with is the why did you pick Zato and why do you still play them?
I picked Zato because from a character interest standpoint, I've watched Guilty Gear for a long time and I enjoy watching Zato. I think the way that Zato has the opportunity to overwhelm his opponent is really interesting to me. A friend said to me once that I like to play one-player fighting games, and I think that on some level that's true, but what I really enjoy is the level of freedom that I have to structure my pressure and my game plan while still having it be extremely strong, effective. I don't have to do the same. I can do a different Okazeme every time, and it will still be good. I can do different pressure sequences every time, and I really get to have like a conversation with my opponent through that in that way. I get to tell them that they don't get to do certain things, and they tell me that I don't get to do that. And I really enjoy the level of the amount of variety that is available to me in playing while I play Zato. And then it helps that he's good. I think I'd be pretty sad if he was bad, honestly. Because it sucks to die. It sucks to not be like this character's defense is so bad that like it's a bummer when you're just on the back foot the whole time. So yeah.
Well, awesome. Super appreciate it. I know we didn't get to cover everything that you wanted to, but that is still
It's okay. There's too much to cover.
Good
I felt like I did it pretty expediently too, and I just was like, oh, I still ran out of time.
It definitely is one of those characters. I mean, I think one of the wild things for me about Zato is like he is so complicated in some aspects, but also like sometimes gets so complicated that he almost loops back around to being kind of straightforward.
Yeah,
it's like has all of these like layers and layers and layers that are building up, and then at the end of the day, it's still just like a normal move, special move, normal move, special move, which is like the same stuff that Testament does, who's arguably one of the most simple characters in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people get really overwhelmed with when they think about Zato's pressure is that it's a bunch of like weird like flowchart bullshit. Like I'm just pressing a button and then like most of the time I'm releasing the same button just slightly later than I would. Like I'm just not pressing it. I'm like pressing it and holding it. And then I'm pressing another button and releasing that button at the end of that next button's delay. So or hit stun. So it's like just a timing thing, and it's still just normal move, special move, and all I'm doing is playing with the tempo of when buttons are released, and then I have to think sometimes about pressing more than one button at a time. It's not that complicated. There is an element of like keep it simple, stupid to this, because if you try to overcomplicate it, then you just end up losing usually. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me. I hope you all learned something.
Yeah.
You can reach me on Discord at Kafka 0805, although I guess they're getting rid of the discriminant pretty soon.
You're gonna have to be right on there to get that Kafka name tied down.
Yeah. And you can reach me on Twitter at Kafka805. Or find me in the band Discord or the Odin's Eye Gaming Discord. Happy to help you. Happy to play some games.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We've got
Mhm.
Faust coming up. I gotta reach out to Mr. Gary and check out, make sure that they are still available. We'll be doing that next. I appreciate you spending the time, Mr. Kafka.